Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Faiz Al-Harbi. I'm an emergency physician. I also did a fellowship in digital health, and more importantly, I'm a father of a child with special needs. I will be your host today. I'm honored to be with all of you today. We're going to have an amazing afternoon with Krupa, where we will learn more about pediatric OT and teletherapy. But first, let's take a couple minutes to talk about our sponsor, yourlearner.com. Yourlearner.com is one-stop shop platform for therapists. Yourlearner.com help you run your practice remotely, as well as create a personalized intervention for young children. Yourlearner.com offers invoicing, scheduling, appointments, chatting with clients and staff, storing documents, creating plans, monitoring progress, tracking work hours, and more. Yourlearner.com takes security and privacy policies very seriously. Yourlearner.com complies with all governmental security and privacy regulations in Canada and US, such as HIPAA. If this sounds intriguing to you, please feel free to sign up for a free 2-month trial. Yourlearner.com will not ask for your credit card information. Yourlearner.com has a giveaway today as well. Yourlearner.com is offering an exclusive 1-year free subscription for one lucky attendee. So please head to yourlearner.com and sign up using promo OT. Yourlearner.com will email the winner on May 3rd. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker, Krupa Kuruvilla. Krupa has been practicing since 2009, working in a variety of settings such as pediatric clinics, skilled nursing facilities, and schools. Recently, Krupa founded TotalReport, which is a service geared towards addressing the documentation needs of pediatric OT practitioners. Krupa is extremely tech savvy, and her aim is to integrate technology with therapy. So take it away, Krupa.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Faiz. Hi, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for joining me today for this webinar, Pediatric OT and Teletherapy. I hope everyone is doing well and that this is going to be a great start to your weekend. Let me go ahead and share my screen right here. So this is what the time-ordered agenda for today looks like. Once we're done with the introductions, I'm going to start the presentation, and we do have some time set aside at the end for question and answers and the conclusion. So if you guys have any questions, the Q&A section is open, but I will only get to answer them at the end of the session. So feel free to go ahead and type your questions as they strike you. Faiz has already given me a very generous introduction, but I just wanted to let you guys know I did my master's from USC in LA. I've been a pediatric OT since 2009. I am currently the founder and owner of TotalReport, which is a documentation service. And I also am a product specialist with Verge Learning Inc., which is a teletherapy platform. I would love to know more about all of you and who is going to be doing teletherapy for the first time. So I think we're going to be starting the poll. Feel free to go ahead and answer. And while you guys do that, I am going to go ahead and let you know what the course content overview is for today. So I have divided this into 5 sections. In the first section, we're going to be talking about what teletherapy is, how do you get started, and how do you deal with different licensure requirements. In the second section, we're going to be talking about communications with parents and guardians, some tips and tricks for teletherapy, and navigating a session. The third section would be dealing with key benefits of teletherapy, some common obstacles, and common misconceptions, which we are going to debunk. The fourth section would have client engagement, selecting the right clients for teletherapy, and teletherapy for low-functioning children. The last section, we will be talking about performing assessments, selecting the right activities for teletherapy, and of course, some resources. All right, let's see. We are getting a variety of responses for, are you going to be doing teletherapy for the first time? I see a lot of So 54% of you are going to be doing teletherapy for the first time. That is great. I think, oh, wait, that's increased to 60. Great. I think this is going to be a great resource, especially if you're doing teletherapy for the first time, because there's so many misconceptions out there. And especially, since COVID, everyone has been thrown into this world of online therapy, and you may or may not have training, or you may or may not have experience. So I think this is going to be a great webinar for you all, and I hope you get to take away what you really wanted to from this. All right. So I'm going to get started with the first section about what is teletherapy and how does it work. So teletherapy refers to the therapy that is provided by a licensed and certified therapist via secure connection. If you have ever used any type of video calling on your cell phone, then you know how the foundation of live video works. Through a secure platform, experienced pediatric therapists work with children via an internet connection and a web portal and a two-way live video. Through the platform, the child can interact with the therapist just as he or she would in an in-person session. There are so many opportunities in teletherapy: hands-on activities, interactive games, comprehensive evaluations, and unique treatment plans. Teletherapy promotes carryover of the functional skills in a child's natural environment. So for example, a child receiving feeding therapy may have teletherapy during their normal snack time at home. Now, there has been a burning question from everyone doing teletherapy and parents who have to be doing it for the first time for their children. Does it have the same impact as face-to-face or in-person therapy? Luckily, there has been a lot of research on telepractice from a long time ago, not just since last year, and it continues to grow as an effective service delivery model. And research has found very few differences between telepractice and traditional in-person therapy. So what do you need to get started? How do you do teletherapy? If you have a computer, you have a headset and a microphone or earphones and a camera and a strong internet connection, that's it, you're set. As long as you have these items, you can engage in effective teletherapy sessions. Now, some people might like to use a headset, which improves computer audio. It reduces the ambient noise. Some might just like to use earphones or AirPods, and some might not even want to do that. They might just want to use the microphone that's inbuilt in the computer, which is okay. But you have to make changes depending on the amount of ambient noise in the environment that you are in. Now, another option is an external document camera, which is an optional aid to enhance the video for handwriting and closer work that you may be doing in your therapy sessions. So we had asked a question to all of you. What was your main takeaway? What do you want your main takeaway to be from this webinar? And the top answer is overcoming obstacles of teletherapy, which is great because we are definitely going to be addressing that. So just hang in there. Let's talk about the licensure requirements that you need for teletherapy. Now, I know there's people from different parts of the world who are listening into this webinar today, but you have to make sure that you look at the licensure requirements for your state and the country that you are in, because it's different for each state and each country. But make sure, of course, that you are licensed in the state that you are residing and providing services in. The different states where the clients that you are seeing for teletherapy are residing in, you may need to be licensed for those as well. Now, what they're trying in NBCOT, which is a National Board of Certification of OT in USA, is that they're trying to combine the licenses for different states, so you don't have to be certified in each state, but some states are not on board with that plan yet. So the procedures for each state and for each country differ. Make sure that you have all your documents handy when you are doing this, and that if you have students who you're seeing for teletherapy and they're planning to travel to another state, then you have to let the parents know that you may not be obliged to provide teletherapy to them if you are not licensed in that state. Let's talk about the communication with parents and guardians piece. So there will always be a learning curve. You have to make sure that you keep channels of communication open with the parents and guardians for a longer period of time. Having the communications just over the sessions or during the sessions might not be enough. The most important thing to remember that they will be carrying over the therapy for you. So be gracious, be patient, and you might have to repeat instructions multiple times for some of them. Keep channels of communication open for them to understand the process better. Now, you have to remember that it won't always be a parent or guardian. It could be a babysitter, it could be a grandparent. They might not be as tech savvy as you are, and they might be doing teletherapy for the first time as well. So make yourself available, maybe via email or a phone call, to answer their questions, clear their doubts, so they're able to talk to you outside of the actual session as well. Learn the likes and dislikes of the child. This is very important, of course. I mean, you would have known that in in-person therapy as well. Learn what will work as incentives, how to support them in case they have a meltdown. How would you minimize distractions? Now, ask the families to have incentives nearby, but out of sight. You don't want the child to get distracted during the session, and you want to make sure that you offer them reinforcements for the activities that they are performing. Ask them to read cues. Now, when I say them, I mean the parents or the guardians. They know the children the best. They spend the majority of their time with them during the day. So ask them to educate you on the cues that they might pick up that you might miss. Because even though teletherapy is effective, sometimes the subtle cues that they might pick up on, you might not. If you haven't worked with that child in person before, this will be especially important if teletherapy was the way that you were introduced. Review goals in the first session. This is extremely important so everyone is on the same page. Take time to break it down and explain it to them as needed. They will be able to tell you if there might be a trigger, if there might be something that might not work to your advantage that you have planned on in the session, if there might be something that might lead to a meltdown. So you can alter your session accordingly when you have that input from them. This is also why you need to inform them about the session plan in advance. Let them know what the session is going to look like so that they're aware, so that they know what environment would work best, so that they know to make the environment safe before they start the session for their child. And the last one, which is the most important one, is use them as models. Not only might it be easier for you to explain your instructions to them virtually, but the child may also benefit from the relationship that they share with them. And they might be participating more willingly when they see their parent or their guardian doing an activity. Once the adult understands what is required or expected of the child in terms of the therapeutic activity, it will be easier for them to help the child to carry it out. So explain your directions clearly to the parents and the guardians, have them do the activity for you, correct them where needed, and then they can be a model for the child. Let's talk about some tips and tricks for teletherapy. So first and foremost, prepare ahead of time. Let the family know what space and equipment requirements will be during the session. Tell them to minimize distractions if the child will be sitting for therapy, have backups ready in terms of therapy materials and ideas for your session. Sit against a plain wall, or door, or curtain, or any background that does not have any moving or dynamic objects. Those could be very distracting. Also, minimize visual clutter. Make sure that your therapist workstation has a good light source. Now, ideally, the light source should come from behind your computer, not behind you, because if it is behind you, it'll cast a shadow and the student or the child will not be able to see you clearly. They will not be able to make proper eye contact. They will not be able to see what you're showing them. So have the light source behind the computer or slightly to the side or overhead. If you have a rolling chair, that is extremely helpful in case you're breaking for movement breaks, or if you have any dynamic activities to show, a rolling chair would be really helpful. Make sure your camera is at eye level. So if you are in sitting down position, you do not want to be looking up or looking down. When you are, when the camera is at eye level, it gives the illusion of more eye contact. So when you are making conversation, it'll seem the same like you would be doing in person. Check and recheck your connection and technology. Now, it's technology. Slip-ups will happen. It is not perfect. Always make sure that your audio is working, your mic is working, know basic troubleshooting in case of audio or visual problems, and always have a backup. So what I do is in the first session that I have with my clients, I talk to the parents and I make sure we have backup planned in advance. So I let them know in case the video stops working or the audio is not working. Would they like to stop and continue later at a later date? Or would they want to stop and continue over phone? If the video is not working, would audio be enough? Make sure you're talking about all these things in your first session itself. Now make a list of household items. Why is this important? So being a pediatric therapist, I'm sure a lot of you have been lugging around your materials from one school to another, or if you're in a clinic, you have a good inventory of material that you're used to using in your sessions. But what's happened with teletherapy? Things have changed. You can't always send equipment to your client's house like you would like them to have. So making a list of these household items would be helpful because you can ask the parent things that they've been working on during a break or things that they've been working on for fine motor strengthening. You can involve basic household items in your therapy session. And it's easy to build a rapport with them while doing that because the child is already familiar with the items. You know how they're using it. The parents can play with them the way they have been. So making a list of these items that they can use during the visit it'll also help you tailor your sessions accordingly. So you might not have to get up from your chair and go grab things or ask them to grab things. Involve the sibling when possible. Now, this might not always be possible. That is why when possible are the keywords here. If your patient or client has a sibling, sometimes involving them in the session might work to your advantage, especially if the sibling is a typically developing peer. They could serve as a model that the child could learn from. Also, another advantage is having both the kids engaged at the same time. So the parent doesn't feel like they have to divide their attention or run between the session and then taking care of the other child. Here's some more tips and tricks. Keep distractions handy. Keep something like a book, the child's favorite book, some pictures, some toys. We have to remember it is hard for some kids to remain seated in front of the laptop for an extended period of time. So having something colorful or interactive that they can engage with will not only serve as a break, but it can also be a good icebreaker in the beginning. For example, it's your first session. Start with, say, a reading of their favorite book for the first 1 or 2 minutes. Ask them questions. Incorporate ideas from that book into your therapy sessions. OTs are very creative. We have that going for us. So that should not be a problem. Establish clear channels of communication. This cannot be stressed enough. Televisits could lean more towards training the parent or the guardian or the caregiver because they will be working hands-on with the patient. So having a clear channel of communication with them is essential. The best way you can utilize their presence is to have them act as models for the child, model the therapeutic activity or the exercise, and you correct them if they're doing anything wrong. Once they've learned to do it the right way, they also have a better understanding of what is expected from the child, and they can alter their movements accordingly. Movement breaks, extremely important. Allow time for movement breaks. Go Noodle has some excellent videos on YouTube that you can access easily if you need to use them during your session. Also, there's yoga videos for children, and you can also use alternative seating if needed. The child could be sitting on a therapy ball. If they have a chair, you can ask the parents to put a cushion on the chair, which will allow for some movement during the session so they don't actually have to get up. If you have time for it, plan your sessions with pictorial illustrations, especially for some of the therapy that you would be providing. So for example, you are working on pencil grasp for a child, have pictures of a typical developmental grasp at that level, and then have pictures of what the child might be showing you at that time. Just seeing the difference in pictures might be extremely helpful for the parents or the caregivers to understand where the child is at right now and where the child should actually be at. Familiarize yourself with the language they're using. What does this mean? Now, you can't be multilingual and learn the languages all over the world, but what you can do is familiarize yourself with the names for the toys that the child might be using. there might be something, they might be calling their doll by a certain name. They might be calling their stickers by a certain name. I had a 2-year-old boy who I was, 3-year-old boy who I was working with at one time, and he would not engage with his blocks unless I call them blockies, because that's what he called them. So take time to familiarize yourself with the way that they are in their natural environment. You have to remember they're not at school, they are at home, where they are most comfortable. And last one, speak clearly. Repeat your instructions as needed and ask them to clarify so you know for sure that they have a clear understanding of what is expected of them. Now that you have some knowledge about some tips and tricks and about communication with the parents and guardians, let's talk about navigating your first teletherapy session. When working with a child through telehealth, it is important to become familiar with the child's daily typical routine, their schedule, and the access to materials that could be used in your OT sessions. First, most important, build that rapport. Maybe ask them to take you on a virtual tour of their home in the first session. See what the child's favorite toys are. Learn their likes and dislikes. Simple things like what they like to be called. What do they want to do when they want to take a break from work? Remember, teletherapy is you working in their natural environment. Make use of that. Remind your clients that they are capable of doing hard things. So with the fear and unknown surrounding COVID, a lot of families are experiencing heightened anxiety, heightened fear. Transitioning to something new like telehealth during a time of anxiety and fear might feel a little difficult for them. Remind them that their strength and capability and their cooperation with us goes a long way. Now the next, let them know how to hide their face if seeing themselves is too distracting. Now for some clients, for most of the video conferencing platforms actually, what happens is the video comes on automatically and they don't know how to stop their video or hide it. Now this could be distracting for the child, or if it's not distracting, it might be a little too engaging and they might start making funny faces, or they might smile at themselves or their mom's reflection that they're seeing on the laptop. So the best way to introduce this little tidbit is to let them know in the first session itself that if you don't want to see anything else on the screen other than your therapist's face, this is how you can hide your video. So this way you're not sending an inadvertent message to them that they should hide their video, but they do have the option to do it if they need to. Use the screen share feature often. Think about teletherapy as a virtual whiteboard. This is how you can make your sessions more interactive, more engaging. You can share a worksheet on a particular topic. You can share a PDF. You can share a slideshow. Make it interactive, make it fun, make it engaging. Invite them to create their own sensory basket. Now, I often encourage clients to create a basket with things that would ground them, things that would make them feel comfortable. It could be a warm blanket. It could be a stuffed toy. It could be a musical item, anything. You can buy items from Amazon. You can go to the Dollar Tree. It could be a piece of tin foil, something as simple as that, a bottle cap, fidgets, anything that would, maybe candles, chocolate, something that would engage their senses, tactile, visual, auditory, anything that would have them feel comfortable. When they want to take a break, if they want to use their sensory basket, they could do that. That'll ground them. I had a couple of clients grabbing items from the sensory basket when I would give them a break. And then automatically, it kind of became second nature. When I was talking to them, they would quietly grab the fidget and go ahead and just engage their senses while listening to me. Acknowledge this is different, and that is okay for both you, the child, and the parent. Telehealth is different. Pretending that it's not is not going to help. Acknowledging and owning that the experience is different, especially for children who have begun in-person therapy and have now had to switch, it opens up dialogue to explore the client's reactions to this difference. It may also open up avenues in ways you can make this difference more positive for them, make it better for them. So always open this channel of communication. Check in at the end of the session. How was this for you? How did it feel? What did you think about the session? Creating room for clients to share their reactions to the process and experience of telehealth communicates our desire as therapists to create a safe and secure environment for them within which the client can work. If you have a client who tends to have difficulty with asserting or voicing their needs, consider alternative ways to provide feedback. Would they feel more comfortable putting their reactions in writing to you? Could you provide an anonymous way to collect some outcome responses? If you're having a group session, maybe you can start a poll of yes or no, or answers that need, or you can give more options for answers that need more subjective responses. Perhaps you can just ask them to choose an emoji, how they feel at the end of the session. Ask them, what can we do to make this more enjoyable and safe for you? Just as in-person sessions, engaging the client in forming a collaborative relationship empowers them to fully engage in this process. Play interactive games while online. Whether using a multiplayer internet game that you can both play from your own computer, or using an actual game like Pictionary where you're showing them the cards and they're drawing it out, keep in mind as a therapist, the purpose of the game is not to win, but to facilitate the session. All right, let's go on to see what the key benefits of teletherapy are. So the first one is convenience. Clients don't have to leave their home. You don't have to leave their home. And some of my clients, most of them were between the 3 to 5 age range. They did not want to put on shoes for their sessions. Absolutely okay. There are no transportation concerns. Since they get to do therapy in their home, you don't have to worry about a schedule, about getting somewhere on time, getting stuck in traffic. I had a lot of parents who were working or who had more than one child, and driving the child who needed therapy to the clinic was sometimes difficult for them, or they would have to depend on a neighbor or another caregiver to do that. With teletherapy, that concern is gone. Kids love technology. Well, who doesn't? There are so many opinions regarding technology with children as a whole, and I get it. I am a parent of 2. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I know that I want strict screen limit times for them, but there may be a handful of children today without screens. Almost every child is exposed to a screen today, and most children love the online interaction that they can have with the videos. They can even be motivated by it. Some of them might even focus for longer. They might have greater attention spans with teletherapy. Children are naturally drawn to technology. How we make this interactive and educative for them, that's up to us. Access to providers you may not have had ordinarily. Now, this is especially for those in rural areas who can access therapy from home instead of going to a clinic. And ordinarily, they would not have had access to certain therapies, which they do now. If they need a specialized treatment approach that there's just a few qualified therapists who can provide, teletherapy can connect you with those specialized providers. Comfort level. Some children may feel more comfortable at home. They might like having therapy on the screen as opposed to being in a clinic, or maybe just not being as comfortable as having the therapist in their home. So this comfort level can greatly be increased by teletherapy. Built-in social distancing. With our recent worldwide health concerns due to COVID-19, teletherapy has become highly popular, and it is a very successful service delivery model that keeps everyone safe with built-in social distancing protocols. More emphasis on family and caregiver education. So we've already discussed these in the past few slides, but again, it is a key benefit where you actually involve the family, involve the caregiver, and they are educated on what the process is like and how they can actually carry over that therapy from the screen into their home with their child. And the last one, fewer cancellations. Sometimes due to a sickness or not even of the child, it could be that the parent is sick or the caregiver is sick or their sibling is sick and they are not being able to be driven to the clinic because of that reason. With teletherapy, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about them being stuck in traffic, them not being able to be driven to their sessions. And usually teletherapists send out reminders. So the Verge platform that I am actually using, it has inbuilt reminders to send to the families when the session is scheduled. So when I schedule a session, the family is sent an email reminder, and there's also an email reminder sent 1 hour prior to the session. So I may have a session on Wednesday and I get the reminder on Monday. Great, lots of time for me between Monday and Wednesday to forget about the session. But 1 hour before the session starts, which is a good enough buffer, the reminders are also sent. So you can try and play around with your video conferencing platform and see if that they have that ability or not. All right, I think this was the top answer in one of the polls, the common obstacles for teletherapy. Let's face it, teletherapy has a ton of advantages, but it has brought along with itself its share of obstacles as well. Technology being the first one. Families may not be as tech savvy as you might want them to be. They might take time to log into the session or navigate the system. And some areas might even have poor quality internet connection, which may disrupt the session. Attendance. Surprisingly, this might work to our disadvantage. Sometimes people forget about the sessions simply because they're sitting in the comfort of their home. They don't have to leave to physically go to a clinic. It's easy to forget that you have a session scheduled. Family communication. Now, not everyone is good with emails and phone conversations. In-person communication is not happening, so they might not be on the same page for many things. Dealing with attention problems and negative behavior. We can actually club those obstacles. So a lot of the OTs who are working in school districts or in the clinics, you might be lucky enough to have sensory and motor equipment. There might be a gym. They are inbuilt, they are equipped to deal with attention and negative behavior problems. But what happens at home? You're kind of dealing with difficult children in their home where it's easier for them to throw a tantrum because, of course, it's their natural environment. How do you deal with that? That is one of the biggest obstacles. You have to make use of things that you have at home. They might not have a trampoline. Some might not even have simple things like a swing. So dealing with that is definitely an obstacle. Dealing with negative behavior. It's difficult to do virtually as opposed to in person. So here and again will come the parent education piece, the family education piece, having communication with them. Addressing motor and sensory needs, which we just spoke about, you can make do with items available at home, but it may or may not have the desired effect as actual sensory motor equipment. Completing evaluations. I actually spoke to a bunch of therapists about this, and although evaluations over telehealth are getting easier, in-person evaluations are still always preferred over virtual ones, because what a therapist's keen eye can observe in person is different from what might be visible on camera. Now, here are some common misconceptions about teletherapy. I enjoy talking about this slide the most because we are going to debunk them. We are going to prove these wrong. The first myth is, well, my child is too young. You know, teletherapy, I don't think they're ready to sit in front of a laptop for an extended amount of time. I don't think they would be able to participate. That is not true. So therapy for kids in the younger range typically includes a parent coaching model. Now, what is that? The parents play and interact with their child in their own home as a therapist coaches them on how to use specialized techniques and therapeutic activities to improve their child's skill, give ideas for activities. Research has shown that this approach is indeed effective. I have linked the research in the references towards the end of the slide, so you can take a look. Now, parents are always unsure whether OT provided electronically would work for their child. Is it as effective? Although they do want to stay safe and they do want to stay at home during a pandemic, having easily accessible services is important to them. So they do want to get their child the help that is needed. Remember that. You can use this to your advantage. For most children needing therapy, telehealth does exactly that in today's times. What's the second myth? My child is too active, doesn't have a long enough attention span to sit in front of a laptop. And although that might be true, therapists are skilled and they are trained to incorporate activities that let your child move around and allow for breaks throughout the session to give the kids the more sensory input that they need. There is an abundance of online activities that can be specially selected to match the child's interests and learning style. And by using features like screen sharing, you're doing things like listening to an ebook, or it could be playing a fun game of Connect 4 that you might be doing in an in-person session anyway. You are helping the child work on their goals virtually, just not in person. Now, the third myth, teletherapy isn't as effective as in-person therapy. Now, every child is different. The individual response that one child might have, the other one might not. But there has been a lot of research in this as well. And the research has proven, the studies have proven, that virtual therapy can be as effective as in-person sessions. Teletherapy gives the children who may not be able to receive therapy in person access to services. So when children with fine motor difficulties were studied in person and the children with fine motor difficulties in virtual were studied, they were found to make a similar level of progress. Myth number 4, virtual therapy adds too much screen time. Now, from toddlerhood to high school, parents of children of all ages are aware of the warnings to limit screen time. However, when children are participating in teletherapy, their brains are actively engaged. They are communicating. They are socially interacting, whether with the therapist on screen or with their parent who is sitting next to them. Dynamic therapy sessions that mix the online activities with tasks that children can actively complete in their home. Most parents don't need to worry about static screen time or unhealthy screen time in this case. And the last one, children won't form a personal connection with their therapist. Now we know it is so important for the child to establish a connection with a therapist. When children do this, they are generally more cooperative, more engaged in the therapy sessions. There might be a screen separating the therapist and the child, but they are still face to face. They are still positively interacting on a regular basis. They are still participating in fun activities. With teletherapy, the therapists have the added bonus of being present in the child's home, which you would not have been able to do if you were seeing the child at school or in the clinic. So play with the child's toys, engage them with their family. This can form an even more personal connection between the child, the parents, and the therapist. Let's talk about client engagement. What is client engagement? Client engagement is present when patients become actively and fully immersed in their own treatment process. Now, client engagement is extremely essential, but it's often challenging. Most therapists have a strong preference towards specific methods that they work on, specific models, specific techniques to achieve success in therapy. I've been doing this for long. It has been working. This is how I do it. Here's where you might have to adapt, and here's where you might have to involve a little bit of change in your processes. Because no matter which of these methods you use, they are not going to work if your client is not engaged. So client engagement can be broken down into 3 aspects. Make sure that you're focusing on patient-therapist agreement on the goals of therapy. Talk to them. Address this in the first session itself. Make sure that you all are on the same page regarding the goals. The second is the emotional bond that is created and maintained between the client and the therapist. And the third is the collaboration on therapy-related activities. Think about the best way to interact with your clients. Ask yourself, can I use the same materials that I was using in in-person therapy? What are some of the engaging activities that I can use in my therapy sessions? What were the activities during which the child seemed to be disengaging or disinterested? What are the activities that excited them? You have to keep a note for each individual client to make sure that you get the individual response that you are seeking. Teletherapy is just like in-person therapy also in terms of it's not a one-size-fits-all. You will have to tailor your therapy sessions according to each student's goals and their needs. Now, selecting clients for teletherapy. The next step is you take a look at your caseload and you determine whether or not your clients are appropriate candidates for telepractice. Now, while there is limited research available on client selection, we can turn to our professional organizations for guidance because a lot of them have guides that would help you do this. The AOTA specifically provides a downloadable telehealth decision guide, which will help providers make decisions on whether a client is a good candidate for telepractice or not. Once we review the recommendations of our professional associations in whatever state or country that you are in, we may find we need to adapt what we are doing to meet our clients' needs. This is one of the most burning questions that I have received in my practice as a teletherapist. Is telehealth effective for low-functioning children? Is it even recommended? Now, when we talk about low-functioning children, who are we addressing? Who are we talking about? Those with poor attention spans, those with lower cognitive skills, those who are nonverbal, those who have behavioral concerns, limited mobility, and those who just might be defiant. Now, engagement and interaction with low-functioning students is very challenging. In the absence of sensory equipment that you may have used otherwise to regulate them, it could be even more difficult. And children who do not have access to these special equipment have to rely on things available at home. How are you going to help? Remember the importance of consultation. The biggest advantage of teletherapy is the constant inclusion of families and caregivers in the process. Make use of that. This makes carryover of therapy efficient as well. Parent and caregiver participation is key for teletherapy. Use a lot of modeling, step-by-step instructions, constant verbal cues, repeated demonstration of the task if needed. Instruct the caregiver on hand-over-hand techniques. Ask them to demonstrate the activities that they have had success with at home. Also, ask them what amount of support was needed, how much cueing was needed. Remember, some children might be visual learners, and this might greatly help them understand the demands of the activity or the task. You model the activity for them. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Have positive reinforcement systems in place, especially for behavioral concerns. Now, if your child has been going to school, they may or may not have a BIP in place, which is a behavioral intervention plan, if they've been seen by a behavioral therapist. If they do have that, that would be an important document for you to have access to. You can see what kind of reinforcement systems were used, what worked, what did not work. Motivate your clients with checklists, breaks. Who amongst you is like me who loves a to-do list? I love checking things off my to-do list. It gives me the greatest sense of accomplishment and achievement. Now, if you can feel that way, your child can too. Have a checklist of items. Let them check things off as they're doing them, one at a time. It gives them a greater sense of achievement. It gives them a sense of, I can do this, and I did. Of course, use breaks. Use a lot of breaks, especially with the low-functioning children. Now, movement breaks of any kind are essential during therapy. So you might need a movement break as well. Go ahead, if anyone needs to right now, grab that cup of water, go walk around the room. Oops, sorry. Use incentives, rewards. Use the most loved items as an incentive or reward, and also remove highly preferred items or those that might be a trigger for them or might prove to be a distraction. So make sure while you do have reinforcements ready, the parents have to make sure that they're out of sight because you don't want the child to be distracted with them. Use simple and easy activities. If you're using a lot of screen sharing, bookmark those activities so that they're easily available to you, and especially for easy transitions for those with short attention spans. If I am uploading a file that is really big, the child might just give up. Okay, this is taking too long. So have those activities bookmarked. Accomplishment of simple activities will give them a sense of achievement, will also give you a sense of achievement. Make the session interactive. Use boom cards. Use books from Epic, coloring or painting apps. I do have a list of some interactive games in one of the following slides, so you can make use of those. The last one. This is a difficult pill to swallow, I know. Sometimes the child may just not be a right fit for teletherapy, and that is okay. If they have to hold off of therapy because in-person is not available at the moment, they might just have to wait. In this case, what can you do to help? Give home programs, give exercises, give handouts. This will help with the continuity of care until they can be picked up for sessions once again. Remember, this does not reflect on your ability as a therapist in any way. So do not hold yourself responsible if something like this has to happen. Let's talk about performing assessments in teletherapy. I am going to actually talk about the box to the right-hand side of the slide first, because these are the platforms you should absolutely not use, not just for assessments, but for teletherapy in general. Now, we all have the knowledge that when you are doing teletherapy, the platforms have to be 100% HIPAA compliant. Whenever you're exchanging EPHI or electronic personal health information, it has to be through a secure platform. Your emails have to be secure as well. So the platforms to absolutely not use are Facebook Live, Twitch, TikTok, FaceTime. Now, the important considerations to keep in mind when you are performing assessments is that it has to be a HIPAA compliant platform. Only authorized users should have access to it. Do not share the link with people who might not be a part of the child's family. Think about safety and environment. When you are thinking about an assessment, is the patient self-aware to maintain safety while using those things, while using the manipulatives? Are the parents and guardians capable of supervising them well? Do they understand what is required of them? Is the home environment safe? Does the patient have all the required materials? During an online therapy evaluation, remind the adults, just as in person, they are only here to observe how the child is doing. Do not give any help, do not give any cues. Now think about the type of assessment that you're using. What type is it? Is it a questionnaire? Is it one that requires a lot of hands-on approach? Does it have a lot of manipulatives? Is the test valid and reliable for use in telehealth? Will it take longer to administer online? Is the technology that you have sufficient to carry out the testing? What are the required testing materials? Are you going to be sending those home? Or can you ask the parent to use household items, which could serve as a second? You have to think about all these things when you are going to be performing an assessment. You may want to anticipate the assessment taking a bit longer over teletherapy than you would in person. Familiarity with the assessment. Now, have you ever used this assessment in teletherapy before? Have you used it in person before? If this is your first time performing an assessment in teletherapy, I would highly recommend using something that you have used in person before, because you need to have a high degree of familiarity over teletherapy, especially because if issues arise, you need to know how to have a backup plan or how to troubleshoot. And always review the publisher's website for specific tips or requirements for remote administration. Plan in advance, like your session. Use online forms, send them to the caregiver in advance. This will save your time and increase efficiency. And make sure you take a look at the copyright laws for assessments. Some testing materials are protected by copyright laws that prohibit the reproduction of tests, either on paper or electronically without prior approval. So definitely look at those laws before any assessments that you consider. Selecting activities for teletherapy. How do you know what will work and what not? So take a look at your caseload. Recall what activities the clients enjoyed when you were working in person with them. Did they enjoy hands-on activities? Did they enjoy worksheets? Did they prefer games? What was their favorite topic to talk about? These details will assist you in determining what is going to engage your student in an online environment. Once the information is collected, you have a starting point from which to find materials to engage your client in. As you search for appropriate materials, it is important to remember that children from preschool through high school are accustomed to interactive materials in this age of technology. So when you prepare for your sessions ahead of time, open those browsers, prepare those tabs, organize folders for each student so you're not wasting time searching for tabs and activities while you're in the session. Choosing the right materials is critical to engaging students. Use age-appropriate websites that are visually easy to follow and view and allow the students to click. Boom cards have been excessively popular, and they have been very successful in my therapy with kids at least. So make sure you have some boom cards. It could be an interactive self-paced activity where they're actually clicking, getting feedback immediately. They don't have to wait for you to tell them whether it's the right answer or not. Be animated, be extremely animated in your teletherapy sessions. Now you have to remember that this is different from being in person. So sometimes the child might not be able to read your expressions or your tone of voice as well. So you have to put in the extra effort when you are doing in virtual sessions. And it's always crucial to over-plan for therapy for the first couple of weeks at least, because you don't know. It's hard to predict how the students will react. Being over-prepared helps ease your nerves as well. because you know that you always have some backup. If not this, let's try working on something else instead. So you're not scrambling to find another activity. Authentic materials, use real photos. Use the child's pictures. Use pictures of their home, their backyard, their neighborhood. Use pictures of their family. This will make it more engaging for them. It could be more interactive. If a client needs manipulatives, have a parent find them at home instead. You can use a box of beans, a box of rice, small trucks, clothespins, pegs. Now, on the slide, this box to the right in green are some ideas for interactive therapy. You can use PowerPoint slides, you can use Google Slides. I have listed some resourceful websites which have proven to be successful in my therapy, as well as a lot of the therapists whom I know who've been doing teletherapy. Feel free to use them in your practice, and I hope they help you. Here are some important resources that I have listed. There's a lot of Facebook groups like Telehealth for OT, OT school-based telehealth treatment ideas, telehealth OT. Make sure you go and join these. There's a bunch of ideas being shared by members, by administrators. There's a podcast, the OT Schoolhouse on Telehealth, which may answer a lot of your questions. Here's some other resources from AOTA. I've also linked a sample teletherapy session. It's a YouTube video. So if you want to go and take a look of what that looks like, that would be extremely helpful. Here's some more resources on activity ideas. I love the OT toolbox because they have activities sorted by age group. So I'm not really scrambling to look for what I could use for a 3-year-old versus a 7-year-old. Tools for telehealth is another, telehealth share is another great tool that you could use in your practice. There's an extensive list of resources at manula.com. And Dr. Reina Oliveira, she is a dear friend and a great telehealth OT. She has her own podcast, she has a Facebook group, and she's actually having her own website as well. So feel free to go ahead and just drop in, say hi, take a look at what she's able to provide that would help you. Now, here is a recap of all the things that we've talked about today. So we have successfully spoken about all these topics in these different sections. You should now be walking away knowing what teletherapy is, how you would get started, what are some tips and tricks that you could use in your session, how you would be able to navigate a session, what the benefits are, what are some common obstacles, what are some misconceptions that we debunked, how you can get your clients to engage more, how you would select clients for teletherapy, and how you would try to provide teletherapy for low functioning children, what you need to keep in mind while performing assessments, selecting activities, and of course, some resources listed at the end. Now, if you are a pediatric OT practitioner, this might interest you. I am actually going to be doing a series on documentation. Now, this would include everything from writing SOAP notes, progress notes, evaluation reports, know what to update in the system when you have an IEP, some common mistakes made in documentation, some quick tips to improve your documentation, write goals. Why does goal writing matter? Talk about discharge documentation tips. Basically, everything that my company TotalReport deals with. You can go ahead and take a look at my website or the Facebook group or my Instagram profile. I do have a lot of content updated regularly there. And if you feel like this might be of something that interests you or it might help you in your practice, definitely feel free to join us for the upcoming webinars. I would just like to say thank you to everyone once again for being here with me today. I know we had limited time and we've kind of skimmed through the topics, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. And once again, thank you, Faiz and Uhud, for this opportunity. I am going to hand this back over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Krupa. That was very, very informative. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge, vast knowledge with us. So we'll open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to either send them through the chat or you can just ask the question directly, whichever works best for you. So I'm monitoring the chat section. I don't see any questions. I just see a few people are thanking you, Krupa, for your talk.
Most welcome. And I just wanted to say, if you guys think of questions later, feel free to email at any time. I'm sure some things might just come up later that you might not think of right now.
Yeah, so Ryan Reed asks, do you see teletherapy sticking around or growing post-COVID?
All right. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for your question. I definitely see teletherapy sticking around and growing post-COVID because it's, if you remember the key benefits of teletherapy that we spoke about, these benefits translate not only during this time when parents are forced to stay at home with their kids during COVID, but even after. Teletherapy has been proven to be as effective as in-person therapy. So if you can do it from the comfort of your homes, I know a lot of parents have also been given the liberty to stay at home as opposed to going in person to the office. I definitely see teletherapy growing even after COVID.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, more people are thanking you, Krupa.
Most welcome. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
Oh, and I also wanted to remind them that the PDF slides will be available to them for reference.
Yeah, and we have recorded this this talk as well, so it will be available if you want to go back and pause the video and look up the resources that Krupa listed. I think that is an extremely helpful list. So I have another question. So Brian asks another question. He says, are you familiar with cases of OT grad students doing virtual internship or shadowing?
So personally, I haven't heard of these cases, but I do know of schools that are allowing for this to happen, because what's happening is a lot of the new grads who are going to graduate and start their practice right now are being thrown into teletherapy without having any prior experience. So I know of some schools. I'll be happy to look up and just send you a list of schools that might be allowing for virtual internships. I don't have them at the top of my head right now, but I do know there are a few who are doing that.
I see. So I guess Ryan can maybe reach out to you through your website and
Sure.
maybe you can connect that way. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess I don't see any more questions coming up. So I just wanted to thank you once more, Krupa, for this great talk. And at the same time, I'd like to remind you all about the giveaway our sponsor is offering. YourLearner.com is offering an exclusive 1-year free subscription for one lucky attendee today. So don't forget to sign up and use promo OT. YourLearner.com will email the winner on May 3rd. Thank you for joining us today and hope to see you again in our next webinar. Thank you.
Every change has a reason, baby, let it come to you. Every soul, every season lives outside of status quo. If we stop believing we're meant to be expanding on I don't